Good evening, guys, and happy Monday to all of your sunshiny faces. I forgot it was Monday. I actually was up early today. I think I woke up at like 8:30. It's actually 1 o'clock right now. I really wish that I hadn't stayed up so late, but I did because I am organizing, I think I told you guys, all of our family photos. Just like crazy because me, Matthew, and Jack are all born 5 years apart, and the thing is that all of our loose photos that like weren't in an album, even the ones that are in an album, you're flipping through and it's like, oh look, Kayla when she was brought home from the hospital, and you're flipping through and all of a sudden you're like, oh look, it's Matthew's 4th birthday, and then you're like, wait a second, here's Jack's 2nd birthday or something like that, Jack's 1st birthday. And then, you know, like you flip through a little more and then you're like, oh look, it's Kayla's 1st Christmas. Like, okay, and now this is Kayla's, you know, right before Matthew was born or something like that, like going to one of those like big sister classes or something, like all those pictures. And I was really starting to get fed up with it. I was like, I can't even look for or find pictures that I think I might want to find. I was telling you guys too, I was trying to look for to see if we had any pictures of my uncle because he just passed away. And we did have one. We also have like, honestly, I think we have way more. A bunch of rolls of film that we need to get developed that my mom had in her office. I think my dad had like some film rolls as well. And I remember they were just floating around for like a really long time. And like I said, they might all be the ones that my mom had, but I really thought my dad had like 8 rolls or something crazy like that. And so I noticed that too. All of a sudden I was like, the time that we were really involved in our church along with them was really like between like 2002 to like, or maybe 2001, 2002 to like 2005 or so. You know, we'd see him every single Sunday and stuff like that. And I noticed as I was going through this today, we have no pictures from 2002. And we have, or was that right? Yeah. No pictures from 2002 and one from 2003 that was actually at their wedding that was just of Matthew, that actually my dad, I think my dad's like cousin sent or something like that, after like his aunt had just passed away, like I think maybe a couple of years ago. And so she was going through the photos, the family photos, and found that one of Matthew, and that's the only one we have from 2003. So I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty convinced that like, I know that there was a lot more times that like we were taking pictures, you know, and stuff like that. And like 2002, 2003, like it wasn't really until like 2000 and I'd probably say 2006, finally I think we had like a digital camera, and that's when we really started to use it. So like we have pictures from like when Jack came home from the hospital and stuff like that. You know, when he was first born and all that kind of stuff, but there wasn't a lot of pictures really after that, just because, you know, it was everything was digital. And so I think like my mom has most of those pictures still. It's like on one of her old like tower computers or something like that. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily know where a lot of those ones really, honestly say from like 2006 to probably like 2008 or so. And then I think by 2009 I'd really started taking, like, I think I had a digital camera by that point, and so I was taking pictures and stuff. So yeah, that's when everything kind of sort of changed. I did everything, I put everything in Ziploc bags based on year. I did, for the most part. I have a lot of stuff that is completely like, I have no clue when this was from and all that kind of stuff, but there's 3 like pretty big stacks full of that. And then I kind of sorted everything by sort of like, I guess, era a little bit. I started off with like anything that was really, really old, like probably anything 60s or later, because we do have like some old pictures of like my great grandparents from I think the 40s, and so we have, like I said, a couple of those photos. So those ones from when my grandma got married, which I think was like 60 something. My grandma graduated, I think she graduated maybe 62 maybe or something like that. So there was that, and then some loose pictures that weren't in the album from her wedding, because her album was like a small little album. She had some bigger size pictures. So that, and like I said, a couple of other like ones that were really anything from the 60s and earlier. And then everything from 70s, which was like the stuff, my mom was born in 70, so it was like everything from pretty much that 70 to 80. And then I had everything from the 80s, which was pretty much like when my mom was in high school, and those were all of her pictures and stuff like that. And then I had everything from the 90s before I was born, which was in 95. And so I separated that sort of out a little bit. If I wasn't born yet, those pictures were like in a separate place just because it was easier. And honestly, after I was born, you know, parents take tons and tons of pictures, so it was hard. I didn't want to mix those ones up just because I was like, these will be easier to separate and there's less of them. So basically anything between 90 and like pretty much most of 95 has got like, you know, hardly any pictures in it anyway, other than for my parents' wedding, which they got married in 92 or 93, I can't remember. But I have a separate stack of just their wedding pictures, which are mostly, like, most of them are albums, but there's a lot of like loose pictures too. So anyways, I had that separated, and then I had anything from, like I said, 95, which I was born in November, so it's kind of the end of, you know, 95 anyway. But anything from 95 all the way to basically 99, because Matthew was born in early 2000. So I organized all of that first and put it in a stack, and then everything from, again, pretty much 2000 all the way down to 2005, and then 2005 to anything currently in another stack. So all of the 2005 to today was not a very big stack. I put all of that stuff into one like Ziploc, and then I ended up going through everything from 95, you know, all the way through, like I said, and up to, you know, 99 basically, like right before Matthew was born. So I did all of that and then separated that each by year as well, if I knew it. If I didn't, I just left it in the stack because, like, I was like, I don't know necessarily if this was like, because again, you know, my parents ended up celebrating Christmas, like, and I guess they had like maybe a Valentine's Day party or something like that too, or maybe it was for my grandma's birthday or something, because her birthday is in January. So like I was only 3 months old at that time, so there was like a lot of pictures with me with family, and I was like, I look like I'm still a little tiny baby in these pictures, but like looking on the back, I was like, oh no, this is from January or February or something like that. And so that's when I was like, okay, so you know, like I didn't necessarily know some of those. Like I said, if I still looked like I was little, I was like, oh, I can, you know, throw those in the, you know, 95, but it could also been 96 possibly. Whereas Matthew, because he was born so early in 2000, if he looked like he was a little baby, that was 2000. So it was easier for me to kind of like, you know, throw those pictures in a space where I knew pretty well that that was what it was going to be, but I didn't necessarily know if it was going to be for, you know, that year for me. So like I said, I just sort of went through and did everything by year. Then after that, after I had the sort of main stacks, like between me and Matthew being born, and then between Matthew and Jack being born, and then I started to separate everything by year as well. I, for the most part, am like, you know, I feel like not done with the hard part, but I got a good portion of it done, probably at least like half of it. The hardest part today was I actually woke up early, like I was saying. My neck was killing me, and I was like, I don't even want to get out of bed. Like, I had a headache when I first woke up, which I think I told you guys was like a tension headache, but I don't know how I slept or what I did that made me so uncomfortable. I also don't know too, because I was sitting out in the living room in my chair all day. I don't know if that was also what, like, my neck, just from like being like, you know, sitting straight up, because I didn't have it reclined for a long time, if that was sort of like what was bothering me or what, but I just did not end up, I woke up and it was like very, very insanely uncomfortable. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and, you know, organize all these photos. And then on top of that, I ended up sitting on the living room floor for hours going through the 3 bins I showed you guys that we had. I organized everything out to where we have all the loose pictures separated, to all of the albums actually separated and everything. And so that was overall pretty not that difficult. The harder part was just sitting on the floor for so long, because I was like, well, I want to be close to the bins, and I thought if I could spread out, you know, across the floor, I'd have enough room to kind of sort and organize everything. which was good. But then I was like, my back is killing me. So I ended up actually having my dad set up a card table in the living room, and I actually was still able to barely have enough room, but I have it sort of sorted out and organized into, like I said, you know, the Ziplocs based on, you know, the era and stuff like that. But if I couldn't tell if it was like 95 or 96 or whatever, what I think I'm gonna do is just, you know, if I can't tell, like, oh my gosh, was that when I was 3 or when I was 4 or something like that, I think what I'm gonna do is just leave everything in like a stack of like between 95 and like 99 if Matthew wasn't born yet. So, you know, it's sort of still in that same, you know, era. So if we're looking for a specific photo, like again, you know, my mom is looking for photos from her friends when they were in high school or something like that, she can go through and just be like, okay, here's all this stuff from the 80s, and she can find her stack of, you know, photos from when she was younger. But a lot of it too is in the photo albums, and I know that my mom will probably be like, I don't want you to organize the photo albums, but like they're also just as disorganized. My grandma was horrible about that. Like, there are pictures where my, again, great-great-grandparents are next to pictures of like Matthew when he was a baby, and I'm like, why? Like, I can kind of get it, but like at the same time too, it's just like I like to see sort of the progression of things when I'm looking through photos and stuff like that. I don't necessarily like to be like, oh, this is like, look at this random kid, and then, you know, oh, look at this thing. And on top of that too, sometimes it was like we took photos sort of in chunks. Like, you know, there was like, we went out trick-or-treating together with some friends and stuff like that, and so there was like, you know, maybe like 5 or 6 different pictures taken on that day or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's so cool to see, like, you know, us and dressed up, and, you know, what were we doing, like, oh, Matthew could walk at that time, or, you know, something, whatever. And oh, that person was dressed up as that, but you couldn't see it from the other picture, something like that. So it's kind of cool to see, you know, like I said, it in kind of a bulk setting of like the pictures that were taken on that day or at that time or whatever. But when they're all scattered across like 8 different albums and different orders and stuff like that, it's just like, oh, like, you know. And sometimes too, you think that you saw the exact same picture when it maybe wasn't. Like, it was just like a quick, like we took 2 quick photos or something like that. Or sometimes too, like my parents would get like the duplicate photos too, so if they were giving them to like friends or whatever, you'd do that back in that in the day. It's so weird to think about that too, because now you're just like, I just share it on Facebook, like, you know, or Instagram or like something else. Like, if you want to see it, you can see it there, like, instead of like, oh, I got you an extra photo and I wrote on the back of it, you know, what the event was or whatever and stuff like that. And so yeah, but sometimes too, you'll be like, didn't I just see that photo? And then you flip like a couple of pages later and you're like, yep, that was the exact same photo. Yeah, that's, like I said, it's just kind of annoying. So I don't know if I want to go through and do all of the album organizing, but for me, it's like, I kind of, again, want to be like, oh, look at, like, you know, half of Matthew's photos, like, Matthew has like a baby album, and like that I wouldn't want to touch, but like then there's also some other things too. Like I said, sometimes with like my grandma's photo albums, it seemed like anytime somebody would give her a photo, she'd just randomly throw it in there, or if she found one or something like that, like it just randomly end up in her photo album, and it was always out of order and all kinds of all over the place. And a good portion of my mom's photo albums are like that too, unless it was like specifically like baby book photos or, you know, something like that. Like I had a baby book one as well, you know, or like my parents' wedding or whatever. Like I'd be frustrated if I found like a picture of Matthew in my parents' wedding album. But it's just like their overall, other than like those specific event ones, is not very well in order either too. And I don't know, that just kind of, like I said, frustrates me a little bit. But the other thing too is that, like, if you're looking for a specific photo, you know, if something happens to somebody and you need photos of them, or you know, again, just want to be like, oh, I want to reminisce about that or whatever, it's hard to find the photo if it's all jumbled up in an album somewhere. Or again, all of our loose photos, I showed you guys the boxes yesterday, were just 3 huge boxes full of, half of them were loose photos mixed in with the regular albums, and it was just a mess. So now that it's sort of somewhat organized, you can be like, oh, I can, you know, look at these and, you know, all that kind of stuff, instead of it just being like, oh, this is all over the place. Like my mom's prom photos too, I was like, oh, look at you look so cute in your like prom dress and stuff like that. And then I was like, wait a second, this one's also a prom photo, you know, like it's like one where like my parents had just got married too, and I'm like, okay, well that was one random photo. And then, you know, and you flip a little bit further and like, oh, there's Matthew, and then there's another one of my mom's, like, you know, prom or something like that. You're like, this doesn't all go together. So, you know, and if you're trying to find something specific, again, it's not always very easy to find those kind of things. So when they're not nice and organized, and like I said, that's what I like to do. But it was a long day, and my back is feeling it now from sitting on the hard floor. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna go take a shower and get to bed. I'll see you guys all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give it a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.